Welcome, family, to this November the 14th of 2021. A very special day for those of us who are part of AGC Church family. This is our 19th celebration and our anniversary here for AGC. It's been 19 years that God has watched over us. And we are grateful because these last close to couple of years here, He's been even more faithful to us and has proven himself truly a loving and kind and God who will take care and provide for whatever you might need. So we're very grateful, and it's just good to have you with us. So we are thankful, and always, as we celebrate our 19th church anniversary, we will be returning inside today, and we just pray that God will just give us a celebration to remember. So we praise the Lord for this time. We pray that you and your family and all are doing well. And we call your attention to our lesson and our text as we begin to look at the perfecting class for today. Title of our lesson is Korah's Rebellion. And our lesson text comes from Numbers chapter 16, verses 1 through 14. The golden text says, "Therefore thou shalt love the Lord thy God and keep his charge, and his statutes, and his judgments, and his commandments always." And that's Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 1. On the facts, the day's aim, and the facts of the lesson is to delve into a study of the depths of sinful propensity and examine its motive and methods. The principle is to understand that rebellion against God's order is rebellion against the Lord himself. The application is to sharpen our discernment in recognizing and combating the spirit of rebellion against God and his kingdom so that our lives demonstrate a consistent desire to follow and obey God. Now, you have your Bible. You can turn with us to Numbers chapter 16. Numbers chapter 16, beginning at verse 1. Numbers chapter 16, beginning at verse 1 through the 14th verse. Now, Korah, the son of Ishah, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and Dathan, and Abiram, the son of Eliab, and on the son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, took men. And they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, famous in the congregation, men of renown. And they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto them, Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord. And when Moses heard it, he fell upon his face. And he spake unto Korah and unto all his company, saying, Even tomorrow the Lord will show you who are his and who is holy, and will cause him to come near unto him, even him whom he has chosen will he cause to come near unto him. This do, take your censers, Korah, and all his company, and put fire therein, and put incense in them before the Lord tomorrow. And it shall be that the man whom the Lord does choose, he shall be holy. Ye take too much upon you, ye sons of Levi. And Moses said unto Korah, Hear, I pray you, ye sons of Levi. Seemeth it but a small thing unto you that the God of Israel have separated you from the congregation of Israel, to bring you near to himself, to do the service of the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation to minister unto them? And he has brought thee near to him, and all thy brethren, the sons of Levi, with thee, and seek ye the priesthood also. For which cause both thou and all the company are gathered together against the Lord. And what is Aaron, that ye murmur against him? And Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, which said, We will not come up. Is it a small thing that thou hast brought us up out of the land that floweth with milk and honey, to kill us in the wilderness, except thou make thyself altogether a prince over us? Moreover, thou hast not brought us into a land that flows with milk and honey, or given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Wilt thou put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up. Now, as we get ready to introduce this lesson, we see here that Numbers 16 explores the depravity of man, where we see men who had crossed the miraculous parted Red Sea and then watched the Egyptians' army destroyed. But now they were committing treacherous acts as if there would be no consequences. Numbers 16 is a glimpse into the hearts of fallen people. We're getting ready to see the depravity. We're getting ready to see how people have a propensity or a tendency to want to rebel. And number 16 gives us that example. Korah's rebellion happened in the way that many rebellions have historically occurred, through the wicked confluence of selfish ambitions, and blatant disregard for proper authority. While the precise motive for the rebellion is not exposed here, the passage initially indicates that Korah and his men argued that Moses and Aaron had selfishly consolidated their power for their own benefit. Korah stated, "You take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord." In response, Moses promised that the next day the Lord himself would show everyone who is his true servants, where he told the rebels to appear before the Lord the next day with censers in hand. As a Levite, Korah already held a privileged position, but he apparently sought the priesthood as well. Moses intimated that Korah and his men thirsted for power when he stated, "Seemeth it a small thing unto you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel, to bring you near to himself, to do the service of the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation to minister unto them." As the dialogue continues, more is gleaned. Dathan and Abiram claimed that Moses' leadership was inept, and that he could not bring the children of Israel into the promised land, that Moses wished ill upon his people, and that Moses gloried in his own power over the people. Korah and those who joined him had decided that they should take matters in their own hands. They were misled by their own desires. Now, as we look at studying the lesson here, beginning at Moses' writing of Numbers chapter 16, verses 1 through 3, the rebels assembled themselves. Unfounded resentment against Moses and Aaron continued. And in this week's lesson, we see a new group of insurrectionists rising up against God's appointed leaders over Israel. Now, we've heard that word insurrections a lot, especially this past year, because of what happened on January the 6th. Now, some people want to deny it. Some people don't want to refer to it as an insurrection. But yes, it's an example of a nation or its own people rising up and trying to take over or change their own leadership. And what we saw then is similar to what's happening right now as we look at this lesson. So all that they've been through as a nation of Israel, how God has brought them, has kept them, has preserved them, there's still that sense of stirring a rebellion that the people are bringing up and charges against Moses and Aaron. Now, the leader of this latest insurrection was a man named Korah, a Levite, who was the grandson of Kohath. Kohath and his children had been chosen by God for the special service of transporting and caring for the tabernacle and its furnishing. Although not a priest, Korah was a noted leader among the Levites. Not good enough. He wanted everything that Moses has. He wanted to be a priest, but God has not ordained him for that position. And a lot of times we see that even in churches and places of leadership, people fall into trouble when they simply don't stay in their lane or stay in their place. Paul vividly describes the church as it resembles a body. You have the hands and the feet and the eyes and the ears. Everyone has their own place, their own purpose. And as long as the ears stay where they're supposed to be, and the hands do their things, and the feet take care of what they're supposed to do, the whole body functions. The whole body is able to complete and achieve pretty much anything when all of the members are working together. But here we see that rebellious spirit is stirring up again. And now they're challenging Moses and they're challenging Aaron. Now, allied with Korah and Dathan, Abiram and On, all of whom were Reubenites, descendants of Jacob's eldest son Reuben. Since the Reubenites and the Kohathites both camped close together on the south side of the camp, it is easy to see how men from those two groups would have conversed and conspired together. So now you got a group of people that have simply come together to rebel against Moses and Aaron's leadership. Together, these men assembled, now check this out, a group of 250 others to join them in this rebellion. Isn't that something? It's difficult sometimes to get people to do something good or something positive, but it seems like it's just so easy to get people to disrupt, to be rebellious. And I think we even see that spirit now, even in our nation. It doesn't matter. We were taught to respect leadership, respect those who are in authority. But there's a generation that's coming up now that doesn't know anything about those scriptures, those particular texts. And we see it. There's an open rebellion against authority. It doesn't matter who you are. People are rising up and trying to take matters into their own hands. Now, after the gathering, his collection of rebellious cohorts together, Korah and his fellow insurgents angrily approached Moses and Aaron to protest their leadership. So this time now, they're getting ready to protest and come against Moses and Aaron. We don't like the way you guys are leading us. We do not like your leadership. Now, this large coalition led by Korah accused Moses and Aaron of going too far and exerting their authority over the people. At the heart of their protest was that all the people were holy, not just Moses and Aaron. And they're saying to Moses and Aaron that everybody is holy. You and Aaron are not the only one anointed. You and Aaron are not the only one who's holy. You and Aaron are not the only one that God can use. God can use any of us, but you must remember that God self-appointed Moses and Aaron for a specific position. But they are a little bit envious of that, and they're telling Moses and Aaron, you are not the only one who can pray. You're not the only one who's holy. You're not the only one. So that is their position. The rebels then charged Moses and Aaron with appointing themselves as Israel leaders. They say, you put yourself in power. You appointed yourself. And that could be a very powerful stance, because you have to be careful with that, because they were not instituted by themselves. As I said earlier, they were instituted by God. So, but that particular false statement is spreading among the people, and it's causing people to rebel. Isn't it something how far and how damaging a false statement or a lie can do? How far something that's false, how much damage can be done? There's, like I said, there's just so much falsehood going on. And it's the same as I see a parallel with that, like I said, with our nation, with our country. There's so much out there. People are hearing different things. People are believing different things from the leadership of the country to whether or not the president is actually in power or has legally attained power, to whether or not they're going to obey authority and either do what they ask for as masks and quarantines and so forth. There is just a rebellious spirit running across this nation, and that type of spirit we see very vividly right here with the children of Israel. And can't you see Moses when he realized he's going to have to deal with yet another rebellion? I can hear Moses in his heart saying, here we go again. A bunch of rebellious people can't be appreciative of anything. So he's seeing right now that he's going to have to deal with another group of rebellion. So what did Moses do? He fell on his face in front of his accusers. And this was not a position of weakness or surrender, but of grief and mourning. The people were constantly rebelling against Israel's leaders and therefore against God himself. And Moses knew this meant trouble for the guilty parties. So Moses said he fell on his face. He's praying, interceding. Because even though they're saying these things against Moses and Aaron, but they're really complaining against God. Because, like I said, remember, it is God who put them in power. Isn't that something? It is God who instituted their leadership. Staying true to his typical behavior, when his authority was threatened, Moses did not defend himself, but appealed to the Lord. He did not get into a shouting match with Korah or the others. He simply stated that the Lord would make it known who is his leaders are truly his leaders. So Moses said, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm with nothing here to fuss about, complain about. Listen, God will make it clear. He's going to make it known who is his true leaders. Now Moses was a very humble man. Yet he was confident that the Lord would defend him. He instructed Korah and his entire company to take censers with fire in them and bring them before the Lord the very next morning. Moses stood firm against the challenge of Korah and his company as he returned the words they had used against him, telling them they had taken too much upon them. They had gone too far. You've gone too far, guys. You're seeking power. You're seeking a leadership the wrong way. You have literally gone too far. And that is what they had accused Moses of doing. But Moses turned around and said, really, you have gone too far. You're seeking leadership. You're seeking a position that God has not ordained. Like we used to say, just stay in your lane and stay in your place. God has a purpose for you doing whatever you do. And however you serve the Lord, he has a purpose for that service. They were not satisfied with what God had for them. Korah was not content with the special role God had prepared for him. Instead, they sought the preeminent positions as Israel's political and religious leaders. Yes, they wanted further status, and they wanted more authority, and they wanted more leadership. Numbers 16, chapter verse 8 through 9. Moses specifically called out the sons of Levi who had joined Korah in this rebellion. They were seeking power for themselves and the prestige that came along with it. They were not satisfied at all that God had already called them to a special spirit of service. They were not content. They were not satisfied with what God had already given them. You have to realize, everybody plays a part. Every member plays a part. Whether it's something significant or something insignificant, everyone plays a part. Everyone does. But they simply was not satisfied. So Moses asked the sons of Levi if they considered it as a trifling thing to have been singled out from the rest of Israelites by God to serve the Lord in the tabernacle and to serve his people. They may not have held the most glamorous position conceivable, but it was still very significant. Wow, you have been called out to serve God, to be near his presence in the tabernacle. Yeah, you've been pointed out to take care of all these things that must occur in the tabernacle of the Lord. You have access to be very close and near his presence, but yet still you think that is not good enough. Verses 10 through 11. Moses continued to question the Levites who were associates in the rebellion. Now he reminded them that their appointed service had brought them near to God. They encamped near the tabernacle, and their service brought them into frequent contact with it. They were literally close to the earthly presence of God. Think about that. They were very, very close, working around the very presence and essence of God, manifested in the tabernacle. Their privileged role should have been more than enough for them, but it was not. You would think they would have been satisfied with that. That would have been more than enough to dress and prepare the tabernacle for the priest. But nope, not enough. That rebellious spirit would never be quenched or satisfied until they had exactly what Moses and Aaron possessed. Moses asked the challengers specifically why they were grumbling against Aaron. And these Levites apparently were upset that Aaron had been chosen from among all the Levites to be the high priest, and that only his sons and future descendants could serve as priests. They were not satisfied with being the servants of the Lord in the tabernacle. They had their eyes on the priesthood. Can you realize that some people don't really know how good they have things? Some people are blessed in a lot of different ways, but they let jealousy and envy and strife come in, and they desire to have things that others have. And you have to understand, whatever God desires for you to have or to receive, you're going to receive that if you're his child. You don't have to desire to be or desire to hold a role or play a part that anyone else is playing. God has a specific purpose and place for you in this life and in his kingdom. So we think about it. They were not satisfied with being servants of the Lord in the tabernacle. They had their eyes on the priesthood. The rebels were not really grumbling against Israel's human leadership. Their complaint ultimately were against God. They did not like and did not approve of God's selection of Moses and particularly Aaron. Jealousy filled their hearts, leading them to oppose God's already clearly revealed will. Isn't that something? Here you got Moses. Who picked Moses? God. You have Aaron. Who chose Aaron? God. So now that should be very plain and simple to see that when you reject God's chosen leadership, you're not rejecting just his person or individual. You're actually rejecting God. And that's the point that Moses wants them to see. When you reject me, God spoke to Moses through a burning bush. Moses was God's man. It was Moses who could go up on the mount and talk to God face to face almost. It was Moses whom, in the presence of God, he constructed the Ten Commandments. So you see here, when they oppose Moses and Aaron, they're literally saying, God, we don't like or agree with your wisdom of whom you've chosen to be over us. So this is the revealed will of God, is that Moses and Aaron would be in charge. Now verses 12 through the 14th verse. Dathan and his brother Abiram represented the Reubenites' contingent in the rebel coalition. These two refused to come before Moses when called to do so, and this shows that they were fully entrenched in their cause and had no respect for Moses' leadership or authority. So Moses called, he summons. He summoned. Isn't this seems like a parallel of what's happening now? It's like the Congress you see on TV. They're summoning certain people to meet before this committee about January the 6th. And you got some people just blatantly telling them that we're not coming. We're not coming. We're not coming. It's the same type of rebellious spirit. But they don't have that option. You don't have that option to object whether or not you're coming. If the judge declares the court date a certain time or something of that nature, and you've been summoned by the court system, you don't have the option to tell them that you're not coming. But this is the same thing. So what a rebellious spirit. Moses told them to come before Moses. When he called them to do so, they fully dug in their heels, and they had no respect for Moses' leadership or authority. We don't have to obey you at all. Now, to flatly refuse the instructions of God-ordained leaders was the height of rebellion, as it showed disrespect not only to the leadership or in the leaders, but also to the one who appointed them. I think that's a very good point. When you fail to obey God's leaders, you're not only showing disrespect to the leadership that God has appointed or ordained, but you're showing disrespect to God. Now, Numbers chapter 16, verse 13 through 14, where Dathan and Abiram accuses Moses also. Now, the depravity in the hearts and minds of the two Reubenites brothers is further exemplified in their specific choice of words in describing Egypt. They asserted that Moses had led them out of a land flowing with milk and honey, which was exactly how God had described Canaan. Their use of this phrase to describe the place they had been delivered from was a deliberate insult and challenge to the Lord. Isn't that something? They're telling Moses, man, we came out of a place with milk and honey. Yeah, we had it good back in Egypt, and you done led us out of a place. Isn't that something that they described that was possessed with milk and honey? And here they were slaves. They were in bondage in Egypt. But now look how messed up and depraved their thinking is. They're saying we were already in a land of milk and honey. And they're using the same adjectives to try to describe the place and the land where God had set aside, the promised land for his people. Wow. Look how far they have fallen. My Lord, my Lord. So this was a deliberate insult and challenge to the Lord. At no time during the long years of Hebrew slavery was Egypt ever considered a land flowing with milk and honey. For the Israelites, Egypt was a place of cruelty and bondage, not prosperity and opportunity. To further their case against him, Dathan and Abiram accused Moses of making himself a prince over the people of Israel. Boy, I just say this is just so much parallel to where we are. We just see the dangers of false statements, the dangers of what a lie can do, the power of a lie, the power of something false spreading. Again, they're accusing him of making himself a prince. And their complaint was that Moses gloried in his authority and superior position. They did not view him as a compassionate leader who loved them, but as an opportunist who was trying to take advantage of a terrible situation and exploit them for his own benefit. They're saying, Moses, you're not in this for us. You're in this for your own benefit, for your own gain. Dathan and Abiram continued their rant against Moses, next accusing him not only of bringing them out of a land flowing with milk and honey, but also failing to bring them into a land that fit that description. Moses had not come through on what he had promised, and they considered that sufficient grounds on which to challenge him. So Moses, you not only did you take us out of a land that flowed with milk and honey, which we refer to as Egypt, but come to think of it, you have not taken us to your particular land that flows with milk and honey. How is it they could not understand that the reason that they have not entered into the promised land that God had for them is simply because of what they're seeing right now, and that is that rebellious spirit. That rebellion kept coming up, that going against and complaining and murmuring spirit. They're complaining with Moses. Moses, you haven't taken us to no land. We're not in a land that flows with milk and honey. And God is saying to so many of them, you won't see it. You won't see it. And it's because of your attitude, because of the rebellion and just disrespect for leadership, that you will not enter into that promised land. So Moses is not to blame. It's that murmuring, complaining, rebellious spirit that has permeated the children of Israel. And to make matters even worse, Dathan and Abiram then asserted that Moses wanted to put out the eyes of these men. Numbers 16, verse 14. While this may be a literal allusion to the people dying in the wilderness, it is probably a figure of speech, similar to when we speak of pulling the wool over someone's eyes. In this case, they clearly would have been accusing Moses of deceptive practice, binding people to his failures and true motives. Korah, Dathan, Abiram, and On, and the other 250 men clearly had an agenda. Isn't that something? You don't fool yourself. That's a very powerful word. Korah, Dathan, Abiram, On, and the other 250 men clearly had an agenda. And just like in this country, on January 6th, we got to see something. We were exposed to something. We witnessed something that was truly, truly, truly unique. Don't fool yourself. When that insurrection occurred, it shows us that those individuals, this was nothing peaceful. This was no tourist visit of the Capitol. Those people, when they raided the Capitol, they specifically and truly had an agenda. So it's the same thing. And I think this lesson really corresponds with where we are as a nation and what we're going through. People are rebellious. People have an agenda. And you see here now, we can be complacent if we like and just sit back and, whatever. But people are doing things. Stuff is happening right now to change and alter future events. Laws are being changed. States all across this nation, things are being altered. You know why? Because people have an agenda. Would it be something to realize that on that agenda, you and I may not be a part of it? It could be a selfish, ambitious agenda only for what they desire for themselves. But you must always remember, always be alert, because what we're seeing across this nation and what we've seen in our text is clearly Korah, Dathan, Abiram, On, and the other 250 men, we can clearly say with assurance that they had an agenda. And you don't fool yourself. When all is said and done, when the dust settles, and all these new laws and things that are being voted upon, when they come into their proper place, and when they're put in place and actually officially becomes a law, the whole world and the nation will see that all the while the people had an agenda. And this is why we have to trust God even more. We have to rely upon God even more. And we have to ask God to continue to order our steps, to continue to fight on our behalf. Because don't you fool yourself, and don't you think just because it seems like things are quiet and not in the headlines. I think when the future and next year and beyond, and we see some things come into existence, it's going to simply confirm what this last particular paragraph says, that they had an agenda. So we have to trust God and make sure that we keep God on our agenda, because the things that are yet to come, family, the turmoil, the trouble, and things. And you say, what do you mean yet to come, Pastor? Well, the Bible says when you see these things that we're seeing, the uprising, the turmoil, the pestilences and diseases and stuff like that, he says something very interesting. He said these are the beginning of sorrow. So wow. So it's up to us to make sure that God is a part of our daily agenda, because we need him more now than ever before. So respect, let me say this, respect the leadership that God has placed upon you and before you and with you. Honor those who are workmen. Honor those who God has given leadership over you. For they care for your souls. And we see here that once again, Moses is going around that mountain once again, dealing with that spirit of rebellion. That spirit of rebellion, where people simply don't respect Moses, and we see the power of a lie, how fast that can spread over the truth. But to God be the glory. Let us not have a murmuring or rebellious spirit. Let us trust God, and let us stay close to God's family. We need him now more so than ever before. We see what's happening. We see this lesson seems to parallel exactly to where we are and what we're going through as a nation, because we see there's an agenda. You know, it could be hidden behind certain things. Oh, we're just trying to make sure that, certain things are done right and proper and certain things are secure. But don't be deceived. There is an agenda. So we trust God. God will keep us, watch over us, and take care of us. Pray that you've enjoyed this perfecting class as much as Pastor has enjoyed teaching it. Again, on this 14th of November, we praise the Lord for 19 years for AGC. You be blessed. We love you. God bless.